also been a while since I felt like I wanted to review a movie. For those of you who don't know, I also have a YouTube channel that I used to put movie reviews up on pretty regularly called the Cinehorde Review, and I also have a blog. And for a while, I kind of took a hiatus while there were no theaters to go to and no movies to really watch. And to be honest, like reviewing streaming movies, like a lot of my fellow movie reviewers have been doing, wasn't really my thing. To me, going, oh, it didn't change my, ooh, it didn't change my title. Wow. Thank you, Restream, fix that. Anyhow, for me, going to the movie theater was a very special thing, and since I hadn't been able to do it, I kind of stopped. But I missed movies, so here I am. And today, what are we talking about? Because apparently my titles didn't change. Oh, oops, yeah, they did. Anyhow, today I'm going to talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League. Um, Before I get into anything, I'm just going to play the trailer for you guys. Because you know what? I haven't even seen the trailer. So let's watch it together. Okay, so um, the trailer is not going to be in the YouTube video because YouTube is special. But the trailer actually hit on one of the issues I had with the movie. But before we get to that, I want to preface this with something. I'm not the biggest Zack Snyder fan in the world. As a person, he seems alright. As a filmmaker, I'm not the biggest fan of the way that he chooses to make movies. Um, so let me get that out of the way real quick. To me, most of his movies have been high in spectacle at the expense of character development or a well fleshed out plot. That being said, I thoroughly did not like the original Joss Whedon cut of Justice League. In fact, I literally forgot I saw the movie until I was watching this. And then, a lot like Chris Stuckman, I realized that the scenes that I did remember upon seeing them were Snyder's scenes. Um, that being said, that style of filmmaking is really good for translating the kind of mental spectacle you create when you read a comic book on the screen. For me, though, reading something like a graphic novel usually has a better balance of plot, character development, and really cool action. And Snyder, to me, for my taste, hasn't really found that balance. So, on to the movie, though. So, how was a movie that I forgot I saw in its director's cut form? Um, Memorable, extremely memorable. One of the problems I had with the original film was that there was almost no room for character development whatsoever. Everything was just. Um, the second half of Man of Steel was the entirety of the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League for me. So like it was very like Dragon Ball Z fight with very little anything going on that made the stakes high enough for me to get invested. With this film, um, it's 4 hours long, so I had to take like 3 or 4 breaks, like one every hour, to go get up and roll around and do a couple things and stuff like that. That being said, though, there was never really a moment where I didn't enjoy watching the movie. Um, it kind of made me rethink my previous thoughts on Zack Snyder. Like he tends to transgress on childhood memories a lot, in the same way that some people think George Lucas remastering the original trilogy does, for example. And so for me, his movies are kind of hard to watch when they involve properties that I know very, very well. And Justice League and Superman happen to be two of those. So for me, those didn't really pan out very well. And I absolutely hated Batman versus Superman. This was a much needed breath of fresh air, and it actually showed me that given enough time and enough like hands off meddling by the studio, Zack Snyder can actually tell a story, which was a pleasant freaking surprise. Um, One of the issues I had with the first version of the film that got released to theaters, otherwise known as the Joss Whedon cut, was the fact that I really didn't know who Cyborg was as a character in the film. I know who he is in the Teen Titans, I know who he is in the comics, but it didn't come across in the film. So for me, the original film kind of fell flat, partially for that reason. So in this, um, Cyborg gets a lot more screen time, he gets a lot more exposition. We get a sense of who he was as a person before becoming Cyborg and why he tends to wrestle with a huge sense of inner conflict. And it's just really great to see because that was one of the things that was missing for me personally. Um, there were a couple scenes with him that I felt were wholly redundant. In fact, the same line was repeated 3 times in the movie for no reason. And, like, that's a stylistic thing to me, so I'm not really holding it against it. The other thing that I thought was really cool is that because it was 4 hours long, believe it or not, um, there was a better balance between character development and the action sequences, which I thought was great. One of my favorite things about the movie was that it kind of painted Batman as kind of a premonitory force in the jail, right? So he not only brings the team together, but he has like this sense of the future, and he kind of has these weird visions that kind of lead you into the Injustice timeline potentially, um, which actually the trailer sort of hits on one of the major issues I had with the film, which is something I just mentioned. So if you haven't seen the movie, turn me off and go watch it if you plan on watching it. If not, I'm about to spoil it a little bit. The whole epilogue to me just needs to not exist. Um, like the entire thing. So in the epilogue, there's this conversation between Joker and the Batman and he's talking about in the trailer. He talks about how um, the concept of honor is basically dead weight in today's society. Um, and then during that whole conversation, at the end of it, Superman comes down as if he's going to kill Batman. They hint at the fact that Lois Lane died, just like in the Injustice timeline in the video games and in the subsequent graphic novel. And like, if those movies are not a guarantee, then don't put that kind of thing in the end of your film. That was one thing I really didn't like. There was one other. To me, like I like Ezra Miller, but for me personally, Barry Allen is the dude from the show, so it's a little weird seeing someone try to pull that kind of Flash off. In fact, I think the CW Flash is actually a better character than in this movie. But then again, I've gotten to spend a lot more time with him. I've seen the entire series, so I mean, that's on me. One final thing I will say is that, like I said, it's 4 hours long. I had to take 4 breaks, and as I said before, this movie really did show me that Snyder can actually tell a story. So why is it then that to me his movies tend to fall flat? Like I didn't like anything beyond. I liked half of Man of Steel. I liked 300 and parts of Sucker Punch, and everything else just was sort of a no go. And I think part of the issue behind that is length, right? Because when you're sitting in a theater, if they have to like provide for so many showings of a movie a day, and the longer a film is, the harder it is to do that. If your film is over 2 hours, theaters almost by default, it seems, are like, oh, this isn't fun. This was a 4 hour long movie. I could have very easily seen this being cut up into a 4 part miniseries or something. And if I'm going to be real, like, this kind of cast Zack Snyder in a new light for me because if length is the issue, then go for the miniseries angle or do movies for streaming platforms that don't give a shit about how long your movie is. Because to be honest, if this was the version of Justice League that I saw in the first place, I might have actually remembered. Um, this just goes to show, like, for me personally, that even if I don't like a director, that doesn't mean they can't do good work. First of all, second, um, filmmaking is a very fluid process, and sometimes there's a shit ton of interference, and a lot of times you don't get to make the exact movie you want to make. I'm super glad this exists. I mean, for me, it was worth the 4 hours. But again, like Chris Stuckman, it was really hard for me to get hyped for the movie because the first cut of the film was so underwhelming that I literally forgot I saw it. So if you have access to it on HBO Max, I think Amazon might be streaming it soon on demand. I would recommend it. I recommend it to a friend of mine to try to take it in half-hour to an hour doses. It is a very long one, but I think this is the cut that fans deserve. And maybe if this were actually a theatrical cut done by Zack Snyder, I could totally see this being a 3.5 hour movie that I actually enjoy. So there you have it, guys. My opinion on the Justice League movie has completely flipped around. Um, However, I do still wish Batman versus Superman did exist. So with that being said, I'm gone for now. I hope you all have a wonderful night. I just wanted to drop this one real quick live and promptly give it a shot. If you guys like it and you're watching on YouTube, please let me know. What were your thoughts on the movie? I will talk to you